The creator world is full of talented people, and there's yet another you coming up the chain, learning the ropes, and potentially building another creative business to compete with you. So, what do you do to protect the longevity of your creator brand? Well, you build a moat. M-O-T. M-O-A-T. So, you build the moat around your creator brand, your creator castle, to essentially establish a set of ways by which it's going to be much harder to compete with you if there's another creator coming up in your niche and trying to potentially even learn from you, which is nothing bad or terrible, but you're trying to make this a full-time living, so you want to make sure you're protected and well established. What does the moat stand for? Master. First and foremost, we need to talk about the fact that as you enter a certain niche, ideally and over time, you master it. One of the great examples that I wanted to bring up is Hera. If you've never heard of him, he's a professional esport player. He's specifically focused on Age of Empires and Age of Empires 2, I guess, as his primary game. And the level of his mastery allows him to be currently top 1 in the globe when it comes to ranking or ELO ranking of this particular game. He knows the game in and out. He knows all the tricks. He understands the meta. He understands how it works. He understands how the community engages it. He competes professionally in this space. So if you're right now, say, a young creator who is really interested in, breaking into the world of gaming, specifically RTS, real-time strategy, or specifically into the Age of Empires 2, which is one of the most popular real-time strategies, you want to compete with this guy, you essentially and ideally need to reach his level of mastery and overcome that level of mastery for you to be able to go and then educate the audience of something new. So one of those examples when it comes to your niche can be specific art and craft within that field, just the knowledge base that you have about that particular niche that you're a part of, anything that establishes you as a go-to source expert who have spent years and years potentially in that industry, in that niche, in that space, to accumulate the amount of knowledge and experience that's very hard to replicate by someone who's just starting. In my case, I take very personal pride in a very kind of like similar approach, because my moat is my 15 plus years of business experience, and you have to go and spend 15 years like me, do the kind of work that I've done, work as hard as I had for you to be able to match my expertise and my knowledge. So something I continue to build and continue kind of like, digging deeper and broader moat around my brand and my personal skill set, and very similar to Hera and very similar to anyone else in those niches. And if you're a young creator watching this, you can be questioning it. Okay, but what am I do now? If I'm always 10 to 15 years behind all of these experts, all of these guys, like how do I achieve that mastery, right? Like how do I master that specific niche? Well, the idea here then becomes kind of like your old and proven and true strategy of finding out potentially a niche within a niche. Can it be a very different type of, if using Hera as an example, can it be a different kind of like RTS, different kind of game, can be a different level of mastery? Maybe you're very specifically focused on a specific type of and format of the tournaments that you're trying to master. There are ways by which you can continuously kind of like reshape and reposition the niche around your expertise and your skill set. Again, to make it more unique, but also because it's now suited to your skill set and potential long-term experience, you can build out that moat around you to establish yourself even further and build kind of like, your own moat around your creator castle as a young creator. O stands for community. And yes, shut up, I couldn't find a synonym for this word or any kind of word. There was onlookers or organization, order, like those kind of words didn't fit the message that I'm trying to deliver with this. So just bear with me. We're sticking with it. It's community. Specifically for the creators, the big one, I think, when it comes to community is being able to create the kind of audience around your creator brand that's loyal to you at this point, right? Like they're showing up primarily for you. I use the example of streamers. I think between, again, Atriarch in the top left, iShowSpeed or Ibai, they created and cultivated this community around their brand, and people there show up for them. A few years back, 10 years back, there'll be someone like Casey Neistat who could make any kind of video about any kind of topics, and we'll all be out there sitting and watching and consuming his content. It didn't matter for us because it was all about that community that we created around his brand. The difference is that, and I think why actually communities around the streamers are much stronger than for the creators. For someone like Casey and YouTubers like myself, there's only so much back and forth interesting interaction you can create in a comment section because it's asynchronous. You kind of have to be there maybe at the very beginning to be part of this conversation. Timeliness is still important for these guys, but the streamers are able to respond to commentary and respond to the streaming chat live as they are creating the content, right? So between all three of them, they can continuously interact with their audience. They can go back and forth. They can create their inside jokes. You can sometimes see those inside jokes kind of like make it to the long form content. Like if, say, one of them posts a video on YouTube, you can see the comments kind of like alluding to some insider information that they might have developed during one of those streams. And it's kind of like a running joke for them. And for someone like myself, who's not part of it, who's not there live watching them, it just goes above my head. But that's the whole point. The whole point for them is that they created that community and cultivated that relationship with their audience. So the audience will be there to support them, not only within the creator moment, right, in terms of like streaming itself or making a video, but if, say, they decide to release a digital product, physical product, they try to go after some new other exciting ventures, audience will be there. And this is a great mode strategy of building a community because you essentially, as a creator, can tie and create this parasocial relationship that's very hard to break if you're a new creator. Like if you're someone who is watching you by on a regular basis, or take even Atriak, right? Like Atriak has a very interesting niche in terms of he's a little bit gaming, but also a lot on the business side from like marketing and finance perspective. You can find streamers in those areas elsewhere, but the relationship that you've developed and cultivated with Atriak, if you're watching him regularly, will be very hard to kind of like replace. And in the world of attention economy, where the attention and the amount of hours that we have in a day is limited, you would have to make a choice of, I'm going to stop watching this favorite creator, this favorite streamer, and I'm going to go watch this new guy who I'm yet to even, enjoy, understand, really cultivate this kind of relationship. You'll never do that, right? It's the same choice that we always face with like our favorite food, our friends, our relatives, right? So sometimes, yes, there's some excitement in being something new, but in limited space and capacity of time that we all have. Well-known, something that's entertaining, something that fits within maybe your whatever, like lunch hour or that evening downtime time when you take to yourself and you're just trying to enjoy your favorite type of content. One of these guys who built the community with you being part of it will always win, in my opinion, or like 95% of the time. So community being the second very powerful way of building that moat around your creator brand. A is for access. Yes, we're finally back. O was the only one I had issues with. The rest of them are fine. They allowed me to deliver the message I wanted to deliver. So from the access perspective, as a creator, one of those interesting parts, and in some cases it can go with the mastery as well, with the first point. But the interesting aspect here is, do you have unique type of access to information, people, different kind of aspects of that job that you want to shine the light on as a creator, right? If you're a cooking creator, do you have access to different Michelin chefs maybe, or you can backdoor into the biggest, most expensive restaurants in the world and they'll let you kind of like go and record and show some stuff. If you're a knowledge-based creator, do you have access to some of the professors, some unique libraries, unique information that you can go and share with your audience, and so on and so forth. That level of access, whether it is developed before you became a creator or something you cultivate because you proved yourself to be an advocate and kind of like a fan of the niche, and people start reaching out saying like, hey, you're really great at showcasing this part of our community. Come, let me show you some of the behind closed doors, what's happening, right? Like you can cultivate it and grow it over time, but once you do, it's very hard to replace for someone new because, again, that level of trust and the personal relationship that you're going to build will be something that will help you protect your creator brand, but for someone new will be very hard to achieve because, again, you have to prove yourself. You have to prove to those individuals who hold the keys to those doors that you're as trustworthy as this other more experienced, more established creator. Great and favorite example in this case, or this may be a more recent example of this one, is Stephen Bartlett, right? Stephen Bartlett, the owner co-founder of the Diary of the CEO podcast. I'm sure you've seen clips in the short form, on the long form. Great guy, very smart. He managed, whether it is through initially some of the relationship that he had, but now over time, as he kind of like established himself as a trustworthy interviewer who's not going to have any gotchas, who'll let you kind of like communicate things that you want to communicate as an individual who is sitting in front of him at that table during the interview, and also someone who really understands and like spends time studying you as a subject, right? So he shows a lot of respect to the people who are in front of him. And once you've done it enough times over the years, now people can always go back to this pool of interviews and say, like, he've interviewed the who's who of all sorts of different industries. So if you're someone new, you're very high level, in terms of like you're somewhere high level ranking in the industry that you're at, or you're just very popular and, unique kind of individual that everyone wants to interview, but you rarely do interviews, Steven has much bigger chances of securing you as a potential interviewee within his podcast, because of the fact that he can come to your team or yourself and say, hey, here's the portfolio of all the different conversations I've had with all these, like, again, who's who of different industries, and I've treated them with respect, and I made the most of those opportunities, so I can help you make the most of this opportunity in front, sitting down and kind of like talking through it. Obviously, the other aspect, the elephant in the room we have to face, is the fact that he's one of the most popular right now. He owns one of the most popular podcasts right now in the world, so that helps as well. So if someone wants to deliver a certain message out there, there's a benefit for them to talk to him. But again, his access to those individual few folks allowed him to kind of like snowball this momentum, where at this point, I highly doubt there's anyone in the world today who I don't think would be out of reach completely for him. Right, and I'm including probably even people like Putin, in terms of they've seen his work, they've seen the respect that he shows to the people who he sits in front of. So he's going to go and kind of like do the great job. And then within your space, as you as a creator, is there, again, access to certain individuals, certain technologies, certain places that no one else can immediately have? Or could you develop that as a younger creator to the point where you show the respect and you show the understanding and appreciation for what subject you're covering, and then use that as a way to kind of like unlock some of those doors and get that access to, again, create that moat around yourself that very hard to beat, because it takes time, it takes a lot of respect, it takes a lot of hard work to achieve something that, for example, Stephen Bartlett achieved through his career where he is today. And finally, T stands for technology. And yes, we're creators. We like our tools and gadgets and all sorts of things that we're using to make content. And fortunately or unfortunately, it can be a very good mode to help you kind of like set up the kind of content you create that very hard to replicate. And to quickly illustrate and then go through some of the other examples, I want to use the example of one of my favorite creators is Marquise Brownlee, MKBHD. He here probably pictured with like, I don't know, 10% of the equipment that he has, right? It's also older photo, but I think it was representative of just like all the tech and all the gear that's lying around him, to showcase that sometimes once you achieve certain level of content quality, to elevate it, you have to invest and you have to purchase very expensive equipment. But the more you elevate, the more complex you make it happen, harder it is for anyone else to walk in and kind of like beat you on that quality, right? One of the things that he has, if you ever watch his videos, sometimes he has this interesting panning shots, or very quick or very slow, kind of like very measured shots of, the tech that he's reviewing. Part of the reason he has it is because he has this like, $250,000 robo arm with a camera on it. And the camera itself is probably like another like $20,000 at least, if he's not using like Dragon or something, which with all the bits and pieces can probably run you like 50K plus for a camera itself with all the accessories. This is a lot of money. It's like hundreds of thousands of dollars that he invested of his own money into the piece of equipment that now enables him to create those unique shots and unique ways by which he can showcase the gadgets that he's reviewing. And so from the perspective of like the technology, you can think of it also from any kind of niche, right? Maybe within the car space, right? If you're making like car videos, part of it is access, maybe access to some of those cars, but part of the mode can be the fact that you have tech to showcase. Maybe you have the drones, you have special like high quality suction cup with those small action cameras all over the car. Maybe you have some technology that you can showcase. Maybe there's some 3D rendering and stuff that you do, and you have the know-how, again, which comes back to mastery, that you can combine all and create a unique piece of video around a vehicle that no one else can if they just have a camera and a microphone with them, right? Again, that's kind of like your bowl that you're building between the technology and also some of these other factors that I brought up. Another example can be, could you invest in certain type of tools that you use to showcase information. Could it be, again, I've seen a lot of people do different things, right? Some people start investing in using like the screens, the special mini studios that they build out. Some people enable themselves by essentially creating like, oh, and it's kind of crazy, but like if you ever seen those like it's like 3D rendering stages that essentially like Mandalorian uses them for the production, right? Where it enables you to kind of like create any kind of background behind you. It's not a green screen, it's an actual screen that looks so realistic and you can put any kind of image on it, and that's how you create content, right? Like people these days go crazy when it comes to the kind of technology they start using because, again, it's a differentiator. It allows them to create that moat around them that's very hard to achieve, again, because you need money. You need money for something like this. You need to be able to justify the investment in expensive tech like this, which means your content and your brand is hopefully making a decent amount of money. As a new creator, that's one of those modes that's going to be very hard to beat. Again, it more comes back to focus on creating unique enough and interesting content and focus on a very specific niche. And as you build out, as you kind of like, generate the revenue for your brand, then you'll be in a position to start investing and saying like, hey, can I invest in a certain piece of tech that will help me differentiate myself and the type of content that I make? And so this is how we form our moat, right? We either master something, we create a community around it, around our brand that hopefully creates some sort of like a parasocial relationship with folks that makes it harder for them to go and switch, or we'd start developing access within the industry to create more unique content using this access, or technology to create more unique pieces of content using the tech that we have. A few things I want you to all kind of like keep in mind is that you still need to create the value first, meaning your content still needs to be good for people to enjoy it, so that then you start building the moat around whatever you build. Like, don't start building the moat around something you don't want to is useful for your audience, right? Focus on creating content first, especially you're kind of like in that process of still figuring out what your niche looks like, what your creator brand looks like. You're still early on in your journey. Finish that first. Once you establish that creator castle, that brand, start digging the moat around it. Choose one or more moat strategies, right? Like, you don't have to stick to one. You don't have to just pump all your money in the technology and that's the only way you're protecting yourself. Like, think about, hey, can I continuously learn more and more and more about this specific area and become a master of it? Can I figure out ways by which maybe if I'm not a streamer, but I have like a Discord or Patreon or some other community that I can create maybe in-person events, and I create that community around myself, right? Like, can I develop that access? Can I buy access? In some cases, you actually can buy access. There are companies and agencies out there that, for sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, but they'll get whoever you want to interview, for example, right? And maybe you spend money to interview a few folks, showcase that you can do a really great job, and then try to find more people to interview for free, right? Like, again, using interview as an example. And we spoke about technology as well. Again, you can flex and play around. Maybe technology itself, by the way, doesn't have to be something that very expensive. It can be just unique to your niche. Maybe everyone else, I don't know. It probably like 10 years ago, the example can be when everyone else shot, the videos about the cars using primarily just like a camera and maybe some GoPros and whatnot. The first person who decided, hey, I can use a drone and I can fly the drone as the car drives, that was their moat, right? Until everyone else caught up and now everyone uses drones. But that's kind of like one of those examples where drones are not necessarily the most expensive tech, even back then. And someone figured out like, hey, no one else is using drones in this type of content. Let me go try and make it happen, use it. Maybe you use something like, again, 3D renders for the cooking videos. I don't know. You're the creator there. Come up with the idea. I'm a business guy. I build the operational side of things. You tell me afterwards what you came up with and I'll help you figure out how to make it happen. And then finally, again, stay aware of what's happening in the industry. Using, again, the example of the car creators, right? People caught up. Eventually, tech became much cheaper and much easier to access, and so more and more creators start using it, right? Like, so you need to stay aware of what's happening around you, keep paying attention, maybe look in some of the top creators around and see what they do, what they use, what kind of things that they leverage to kind of like maintain that top position. And just, again, continuously audit and see like, hey, is my quote unquote like moat is still in great condition, right? Maybe some of those other creators who I just mentioned, they're now achieving that mastery, they're spending more time learning. So if you want to maintain that leadership position, maybe you need to invest more in yourself and keep learning and kind of like maintain that mastery. Whatever that mode you decide, continuously just revisit it. Don't think that you just build it once and that's it. And it may sound daunting, I understand, from the perspective of like, oh, I always have to do it, I have to stay on top of it, but you have to do it anyway in any function. You're a professional athlete, you always have to stay in greatest shape possible, learn all the best plays and whatnot to stay competitive, right? Like you in the business, you have to stay on top of all the trends and technologies, what's happening in your industry. Otherwise, you're going to be just like left behind and won't be able to continuously build your career within that space. So there is nothing different in the creator space, that creativity is subjective. And even that skill can always be learned, relearned, improved, and same goes for all the other aspects of what you're doing around your creator brand. So hope this was useful. Let me know in the comment section below if you think of any other moat strategies or other ways by which you can kind of like, protect and defend your creator brand. And I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.